Today we are dedicating this broadcast to a man who is becoming a local political legend, former Hartford Mayor Mike Peters. A week ago today I got the call from the mayor's son Chris that his father had lost his battle with liver disease about 12 weeks after undergoing a liver transplant. This certainly has been an extraordinary week. The initial news hit many of us very hard. The tributes then poured in, then a wake that lasted 8 hours and attracted thousands of mourners. Finally, the funeral. Let's begin today with a look back at the career of Mayor Mike Peters.
The election of Mike Peters in 1993 was an historic one. The then 44-year-old firefighter lost to incumbent Mayor Carrie Perry in the primary, then ran as an independent and beat her. Perry cried racism, but offered no proof.
I mean, that's a movement not only in our country, but in the world. We have the skinheads in Germany.
Perry was so bitter she refused to help the mayor-elect with the transition. Unfazed, Peters set out to unify the city and did, quickly becoming the cheerleader for Connecticut's capital. But his number one focus, fighting crime, in very frank terms.
Because our citizens are fed up to hear with the crap that's been going on.
Under the Peters administration, the city cracked down on gangs and beefed up police presence with substations. The streets were soon cleaned up, drug-infested housing projects torn down. The voters responded. Peters was re-elected by landslides in 95, 97, and 99. In fact, in 1996, he was named one of the top 10 public officials in the country. But 1997 brought the lowest point of the Peters era. Connecticut lost its only Major League sports franchise, the beloved Hartford Whalers.
Out in front, there's Deneen. He scores!
Because they were here for 25 years. And that was the Hartford Whalers. That was our team. And for him to do that, I thought was awful. And it really hurt the downtown area. It hurt the pride of the city of Hartford. And then people started looking at the city of Hartford as a second-rate city.
The mayor never gave up his hope to bring pro sports back to Hartford. He got the owners of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to come here for a tour in 1996, and the Patriots almost moved here twice. The highlight of his years in office, 1998, when then Governor John Rowland unveiled the billion-dollar Adrian's Landing plan to revitalize Hartford.
And I think the governor understood that we were on the right track and we were coming back.
The relationship between Republican Rowland and Democrat Peters was a cozy one. In fact, he angered his Democratic Party in 2002 when he endorsed Rowland for re-election.
You're a Democrat, but you going to pull a Giuliani and vote for Rowland next year?
I'll be thinking that through over the next 4 or 5 months. I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
The mayor was not without his critics, who pointed out that during his years in office, the population dwindled, stores closed, and Hartford was saved from total urban decay thanks only to the state. On his last day on the job, he told me he didn't care what people thought. Peters said he left office with his head high and some very fond memories of what he calls the greatest job.
I just love it. I think this is the greatest building. I mean, you look at this. I've been to a lot of different city halls. This is the most beautiful city hall I've ever been in. And it makes you feel good when you come into work in the morning and you look around and you go, yeah.
After leaving City Hall, Peters opened a restaurant downtown, Mayor Mike's, where he hosted Bring Back the Whalers rallies and gave free political advice to his customers. He spurned the Democratic establishment once again in 2007, endorsing one of Mayor Perez's rivals. But in the past year, his health took a turn for the worse. And in this appearance on Face the State in September, the once robust Peters was gaunt as he talked politics.
Days later, he revealed to me he had cirrhosis of the liver and needed a transplant.
You've taken on Republicans, you've taken on the mayor of your own party and beaten their CEOs, the Whalers, the list goes on. You've gone into burning houses. You're not afraid of much. What are you feeling now as you go into this phase of your life?
I'm not afraid. I really believe whatever happens, happens, and I'm prepared for it. So I'm ready to rock and roll with this thing. Let's see what happens, you know.
Mike Peters till the very end. With us today to talk about the life and times of Mayor Mike Peters is his, let's begin first of all with the former House Speaker, Tom Ritter, an attorney in Hartford now. Dubin McDowell, familiar face, the founder of our Face the State program back when it was CT 93, I believe. And of course you covered the mayor, now a political consultant. And John Bazzano, the mayor's chief of staff and a former city council member. Welcome to you all. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
You know, first of all, I know the news hit many of us very, very hard. A lot of us really thought after the liver transplant he was going to make it. But what happened, Tom?
Well, the best I understand, I mean, his kidneys started failing a few months ago, and he wasn't strong enough. He had dialysis, but he wasn't strong enough for another operation. His son Chris had volunteered to give his kidney, and they're just waiting for him to get strong enough. And then apparently Saturday, maybe late Friday or early Saturday, his body began to shut down. It just happened so quickly. And by Sunday, he had passed. It just, as I say, it just happened very, very quickly. We were hopeful again, as of last Friday, that he would be strong enough and be back on his feet.
And he was a fighter till the very end. Doobie, how did you get the news?
We got a phone call at our home Sunday. As you know, my husband was a close friend and served as his corporation counsel, and got the phone call Sunday night, and I was so shocked. I think there's just an assumption that, boy's going through a hard time, and of course he's going to be fine. When someone's 60 years old, you don't expect to get that call.
John, I know whenever we had to track down the mayor, he was always with you. How much time did you spend with him, looking back on it?
Quite a bit of time. We were together quite a bit. I mean, we grew into these positions together. We evolved. He evolved as mayor, I evolved as chief of staff. But, I mean, it was always just a great time to be with him. It was a pleasure to be around him. He was an unbelievable gentleman.
You were all at the wake and the funeral. What touched you most about the people who turned out? Begin with John.
The fact that the number of people that were there. I mean, at the wake and at the funeral, there were thousands of people that literally waited for hours to give their blessings to Mike Peters. And it was a true testament to the kind of individual he really was.
Mr. Speaker, I know you've been to many political funerals over the years. This really rates up there in terms of the amount of people. I was talking to the funeral home. They said they expected thousands of people, and it was extended a little bit longer because of the wait.
I've been to political wakes where people go to make sure the guy was dead. Okay, this was quite the opposite. And I think besides what John said, the people from all walks of life and everything else, there were so many of us who selfishly were mourning for ourselves. I mean, and there's a common theme that day that besides trying to give comfort to the family, we needed comfort. I got over 50 phone calls from people comforting me. And I think that was so, so the loss of what this man means to so many of us came through, and it just showed you how many lives he really did touch.
And when you go to these funerals of political figures, they're often the usual suspects and those, high-ranking officials who come, which is very nice of them to do. But in this case, you could see it was so sincere on their part. And what also surprised me, or didn't surprise me, but touched me, was how many people were there who were not dignitaries. I mean, they were just average folks of all races and ethnicities there to see Mike, because everyone loved Mike.
And you died too young when your teachers are there.
Yeah.
They were still there, and talking about him as a kid and the whole bit. Let's talk about when you first met him, Doobie.
Well before he was mayor, like going to Saratoga Springs, for a racing weekend or something like that. No idea that this really nice and incredibly funny person was going to become mayor. But I think that my first political memory of Mike is the morning, strongest memory, the morning after he won. I went over to his house with my Channel 3 photographer. A friend of his is answering the numerous phone calls that are coming in. Friend says, "Mike, it's the New York Times on the phone." And Mike goes, "Don't they know it's a weak mayor form of government?" I mean, the one-liners, and also the self-deprecation that was always there with him.
It was a weak form of government, but he managed to do it. He got a lot done. What are his biggest accomplishments, John?
Well, obviously, he was the type of individual that would just, people gravitated to him, and he was able to build these relationships. If you remember when he first got elected back in '93, the city had some serious problems. We had serious gang problems. And he understood that and realized that, and he had to solve this problem or we weren't going anywhere. So he put a group of people together, went down to Washington, met with Janet Reno, who was the Attorney General at the time, and she, like everyone else, just gravitated towards him. And what he thought was going to be a 5-10 minute courtesy meeting turned out to be a 60-minute meeting, and with promises of help and making the city of Hartford a priority. And as a matter of fact, within weeks, we had federal law enforcement officials working with our city and state law enforcement officials to put together a gang task force to alleviate the problems that the city was plagued with at the time. So, he's just an unbelievable individual to just bring everyone together and get things done.
John Dubey, Speaker Riddle. We'll be right back in a moment. More reflections on Mayor Mike when we come back.